we're good to go.
Okay, great. All right, ladies, we're so happy to be here to present to you today. And because I'm the physical therapist who went through a lot of the injuries with you all as well, we really try to focus this presentation around some issues that we know that all of you are dealing with, or many of you. So I hope that you'll find it informative and beneficial. We're going to kind of roll through a lot of this pretty quickly, but if you do have individual questions, feel free to shoot me an email afterwards, and I am happy to answer, okay? So here we go. All right, so today we're going to cover some of the more common running injuries in the low back and hip, the knee, and the foot. Those are the areas we're going to focus on today, and those seem to be some of the primary areas for you all, especially the low back and the knee. So what we're going to do first is just talk a little bit about anatomy, because I feel like it's really helpful to kind of understand the anatomy portion of this in order to understand what happens when we have an injury. Okay, so what you see on the screen now is a picture of the low back. This is a really important piece to understand because a lot of times this is not well understood and we end up making our back worse. So what I want you to look at in this picture is the disc, which is in between the vertebrae that you see there. It's the little sort of gray looking structure there, and it's fluid filled, and we can damage our disc over time. And also if we're running with improper form or don't have good core strength, that can damage the disc. And if you look right next to the disc, you see the nerve. That's the yellow structure. Okay, so when the disc gets irritated, it can press on that nerve. Now there are other things that can also cause pressure on the nerve, but primarily a lot of runners see issues with their disc. So the nerve runs down the leg, as you can see in the picture. And it can be very confusing because when the disc is the issue, it can cause pain in our butt, can cause pain down our leg, it can even cause pain in our calf. So it's kind of important to understand that piece of this. This next picture that I included is to illustrate to you all that the position of your body can play a big impact on what's going on in your low back and your disc. So for those of you who have low back pain that we've identified, or even those of you who think you might have hip pain or knee pain, but maybe you have some back pain too, I want you to look at this. So some stretching that we do and some positions that we might do in other activities like yoga, and also our posture during our daily activity, that can hurt our low back. So if you look at this graph here, it's the position of your body and the impact on your low back and your disc. So if you look at the top there, bending forward in a seated position really puts pressure on that disc, but also just bending forward in general. So a lot of folks will bend forward to stretch their low back, but if you have a disc problem, that can actually make you worse. Moving on to the next slide, I put this one in too to show you, you see the yellow structure there, the nerve. So when there's pressure in your low back on that nerve, extending your leg out all the way like this in this picture, that can also cause pressure in your low back. So like, for example, a hamstring stretch, or if you drive a lot and your leg is extended, or if you sit in a recliner or on your couch at night and you extend your leg all the way, that can make your pain worse too if you're having low back pain. So I wanted to point that out because I think it's really important to understand if you're dealing with some of these issues. Another point with low back pain, this is just a picture of all the different referral patterns that the low back, all of these black pain areas are coming from the low back, which is crazy. And I just threw an exercise in too. If you are having low back pain, many of you have received this from me already, but it's really simple. You bend backwards, and that uses the ligaments and the vertebrae to relocate that disc injury that's pressing on the nerve. Sometimes it hurts a little bit at first, but if you do it throughout your day, it can improve your symptoms. And then another thing that can really help with the low back and with any kind of pain in your body is strengthening your core muscles. So I wanted to show you a slide of your transverse abdominals, which are the ones that actually wrap all the way around. And then, so they're not your six-pack muscle. Your six-pack muscle is in the front and the transverse wrap around. And so if we train our transverse, they can almost work like a corset and hold our back strong and stable when we're running. And so some of the exercises we're going to show you are going to be aimed at training the transverse abdominals because they're so important. This picture is moving on to the hip anatomy, and the coaches are jumping in, I promise. I'm just going to cover the anatomy part because it's more a physical therapy background kind of thing. So many of you are familiar with the IT band. It can cause pain up at your hip and also down. What people don't understand frequently is that it also can cause pain down at your lateral knee. So if you have pain on the outside of your knee, it may actually be coming from an IT band issue. And most of you have received the IT band stretching from me, but if you have pain on the outside of your knee, that might be a culprit as well. Frequently, though, the IT band, we always think it's the IT band as runners, and many times it is coming from the low back. So I'll just throw that nugget out there too to consider, and really kind of teasing out where your pain is coming from. Knee. Many of you have issues with the knee. I had to put this picture in. There are many other things that can go wrong at the knee, but this picture shows you what a normal knee looks like. And then over time, wear and tear can cause the knee to look like the picture on the right as you're looking at your screen. And what happens then is there's just inflammation in the knee joint itself. And so when we load the knee when we're running, that can produce pain and problems. So how do we fix that? We have to make sure that we're doing our best to get the inflammation down. If we have a bad day and we're having pain, pushing through it when you have knee pain and likely arthritis is not the best solution. You have to rest, get the inflammation to calm down. And then there's a lot of exercises you can do to strengthen your hamstring, which is the muscle on the back of your leg. That's the best muscle to strengthen along with your gluteals and some of your hip muscles. That's all backed by research to protect your knee. And we're going to go through those in just a few minutes as well. Last thing is the foot. Many of us are familiar with flat foot. Here's a picture that shows a normal foot and then what happens when you have a flat foot and how it, especially when you're running, it can affect your whole body. So this next picture here shows, you see the arrow going down where the foot's collapsing, and you see what happens at the knee. So it makes sense. Sometimes our knee pain and our wear and tear over time can be attributed to what's going on down at our foot. So we have to think about our foot too and stabilizing our foot. And one of the big things for all of you all that I want to reinforce is that it's really important, not just when you're running, to wear a stable shoe. I think we mostly all understand that. But if you have knee pain or you're having anything going on, walking around in a shoe at home, like a slipper that has no support, or barefoot, that can really load your knee too. You know, if we're doing things, we're cooking or we're vacuuming or whatever we're doing at home, we need to be wearing a stable shoe for that too. And I often tell people, just get a running shoe and use it as your home shoe if you can, but at least try to find something that has some arch support in it. And this is why. And this is just a picture to show you that so we're starting on the bottom here with the foot. If there's an issue with the foot, look at that. It can translate all the way up to your knee and up and even to your low back, your hip, your back. So it can really affect everything, and actually translates all the way up to your shoulder and your neck too. So it's just so important to stabilize your foot. Okay, now we're going to move into a discussion of exercises. And I'm going to have India and Dana jumping in with me too. I'm going to give just a really brief minute for any questions that you all might have, and just unmute yourself and ask, because I can't see everyone real easily if you raise your hand. So just unmute and ask if you have a question before I move forward. No questions? Okay, awesome. Okay, let's move on. Dana and India, are you guys unmuted? Do you want me to start going through some of the ones that have me on them?
Yes, you can go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so this is what I was talking about with the corset, the internal corset. And this picture here is showing how we draw our stomach in and up to contract our transverse abdominal muscles. So I'm kind of showing you in the bottom picture there how you're scooping in and up and holding your stomach tight. It's not a contraction down, but rather lifting your stomach in and up. And then once you have that contraction down, you can try this exercise, which is the dying bug. You can see that I'm alternating my arms while I'm holding my tummy tight. And the really beautiful thing about this exercise, if you look, I'm training my core, but I'm not bending my neck or my body like I would with a traditional abdominal exercise. And so it's not loading any other part of my body. It's very protected, okay? I would encourage everyone to try this one, and you can increase the holds, you can add a weight in your hand. There's lots of ways to make it harder, but our core is so important, and this is a very protected way to train your core. Next up, I have a plank on your elbows. This is again meant to do with an abdominal contraction of the transverse abdominals. And then, you hold the plank to your tolerance. The one thing I will say about planking, I know a lot of us do it, is to make sure that you're not having any pain or discomfort when you are in the plank position. If you feel discomfort in your back or your leg, you don't have adequate stability. So lower the amount of time that you're holding that plank. Next up, I have hamstring strengthening. So we were talking about our knees and how to protect our knees. And I said the hamstring is really important. So again, the hamstring is that muscle on the back of your leg. And this is showing on a therapy ball. I have my feet up on a ball there, and then I'm holding my tummy tight again, and I'm curling that ball towards my bottom, and I'm contracting my hamstring muscles. Again, I love this one because it's so protected. Everything else is in neutral, and I'm not loading any other part of my body when I'm doing that exercise. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to India, and she's going to talk a little bit more about a few more exercises that can stabilize our body, and especially if you have knee pain, can be very effective for knee pain as well. So I'll turn it over to India.
Thank you, Gina. So something else that I would like to add is that a lot of times when we are doing, or when we are running and we may be injured in one place, sometimes we overcompensate or use other muscles to make sure the pain is not continuing to go through the body. So this exercise here is the fire hydrant. With this exercise, you want to ensure that your back is as straight as possible and you're bringing your leg out to the side. Now, what you want to ensure that you're not doing, my left hip is not going over. So you want to use all of the muscles in your legs to pull it fully up and out, and you don't want to be leaning over to the side because that can hurt other areas. Okay, and that one is called the fire hydrant. You can go to the next one, Gina. And so this one here is your legs up. So of course, Gina is on her side and she's bringing her leg up and then also to the back. So this here is going to help to strengthen the hips and the glutes. You're going to feel that right in your hip pocket and on your glutes. So your bottom, your butt is what you're going to really be feeling on this one. So you want to ensure that you are not, again, moving forward or back, but you want to lift your leg up as high as possible and back. And the next one, this is similar to the fire hydrant that I talked about, but it's called the donkey kick. So this one, instead of bringing your leg to the side of you, you're pulling it up to the ceiling. So you want to ensure that your foot is as flat as possible, as if you're pushing up something towards the ceiling. Again, with this one, you want to try to keep your back as neutral as possible and flat, and you don't want to angle it to where you feel like you're arching your back. If you're arching your back, you're not doing it correctly. So you want to ensure that you are keeping your back as straight as possible. All right, so another glute and hip exercise is the glute bridge. So for this one, this is really good. You're going to feel some tightness in your bottom, so your glute. So you're going to lay flat on your back, and then you basically just push your hips towards the ceiling. A lot of times, if you really feel it, if you hold that position a couple seconds and then release back down and then repeat that motion. So down on the ground and then lift up to the ceiling again and back down. And you can hold that bridge up for a couple of seconds and you will feel the, you will definitely feel it working in your glutes.
I'm going to take this one and
Sure.
India. Okay, so here we're doing an eccentric calf strengthening exercise. Someone sent me a text, and I'm forgetting who it was, that was talking about pain in the back of their heel, and I sent them this exercise. If you're here and you sent me that text, unmute yourself and tell me who it is. So
that was me, Gina.
Okay, awesome. I knew. Okay, so here's the exercise, the picture again, and we're going to cover it again. But yeah, so we can get some Achilles pain at the back of our heel, which is what you were describing. Yeah, when you text me. And that can occur right at the back of our heel and sometimes up into our calf as well. This is a really great exercise to combat that and also just to do in general. So you go up on your toes on a 1 count, and then you slowly lower down to your heel on a 3 count. So in the top picture, I'm going up on that 1, and then on this picture, I've gone 1, 2, 3, and down flat. This is an excellent one to add, especially if you're having that pain. Stretching as well for Achilles tendonitis is great. So that's what I was just talking you through. But for anyone who's having knee pain or is running, these two stretches are really important. The first one is the Gastroc Stretch, where your back leg is completely straight and your heel is staying on the ground. These stretches are good to hold for about 30 seconds, repeating twice on each side. You can do them. I actually do these sometimes. I'll warm up a little bit in my run, and I'll do some stretching about a mile in, because I feel like once the muscles warm, it seems to work a little bit better for me. But we're going to go through that in a minute as well. And then the bottom one here, the back leg is a little bit bent, the heel is still on the ground, and that's getting the deeper muscle, the soleus, which can actually be the culprit in some of our calf pain. So those two stretches are valuable. Here's the IT band stretch that I was talking about before. And so this is a stretch for the right leg. And you see that I've got my right hip towards the wall. I'm bending away from the wall. My right leg is back. And I'm getting that stretch in my right hip and down to my right knee if I have that pain on the outside of my knee. One point I will make is that if you are doing this stretch and you feel some back pain, I would suggest that maybe your pain is partially coming from your back as well. And we can see how I'm bending my trunk a little bit there. So if you're noticing back pain when you're doing the IT band stretch, you may have a little more going on than you think. So I would suggest you reach out to me if you're experiencing something like that during the program, so I can talk you through it and we can figure out the best solution. Okay, India.
All right, so as we talk about the different areas that pain can come out, something that we also need to think about is shoes. And I know that Gina mentioned that shoes are very important, and depending upon how our feet are hit the ground, and if they're neutral or if they're a flat foot. So something that you may want to do, if you have not already, is ensure that you are looking at or going to a running store to actually get a gait analysis. So a gait analysis, you can do this at a local running store, and they will put you on a treadmill, or they have different apparatuses in the store that they can actually see how your foot hits the ground and if you pronate. And that means basically if your ankles are running or rolling in and out when you strike the ground. And this will dictate if you need a neutral shoe, which basically means you don't have that flatter arch, or a stability shoe, which means that you may need a little bit more support to help so your arch does not, your ankle does not roll as much and your arch does not collapse as much when you're actually running. So again, the gait analysis can be done at any local run shoe store. So if you're at a Fleet Feet or a Big Peach or any run shoe stores, you will be able to get that gait analysis done. And it's always important too to get that gait analysis done more than once. You don't want to get it done once in your lifetime and then never go again. You want to get it probably at least maybe once a year. And most of the run stores don't charge you for that. But you want to get it a little bit more often because our body changes depending upon weight, depending upon if we've had children, like just everything changes. Working from home or sitting in one place, like everything kind of switches, we switch it up. So another thing when it comes to injuries is that a lot of times, ladies, we increase our mileage way too quickly. So we get out and we do 10 miles one week, and then we go and do 15, 20 miles the next week, or whatever your numbers may be. But you want to ensure that you stay within an area of about a 10% increase from week to week. So that is, of course, depending upon the experience of the runner. But of course, you don't want to go too far up on mileage, as well as not trying to increase speed and distance at the same time, or speed and endurance at the same time. So a lot of times when we start running or are out running, we are trying to get to a 5K without stopping, but we also want that 5K to be fast, right? But sometimes we need to work on endurance first and then transfer into the speed portion of it. So once you can build that endurance up, a lot of times speed also comes with it. Now, in regards to the shoes, I also want to let you guys know that it's good to rotate shoes out. So what that means is that if you have two pairs of shoes, you don't wear the same shoe every day, you can change the shoes up. This helps to kind of keep your muscles guessing and work different parts of your body, depending upon the types of shoes that you have. And you also don't want to go over 300 to 500 miles on each pair of shoes. And what that means is that you may, if you are someone that runs a lot of distance and a lot of miles, you may be changing out your shoes every 6 to 8 months, whereas someone, it may take a year or more, depending upon how often you are wearing shoes. you're
I
running
just
in.
want to add to that, India, that you're exactly right. And another benefit too is if you are having pain in your Achilles, back behind your heel, or foot pain or whatever, switching your shoes out changes the repetitive loading to your feet and your ankle and your calf. So that can help with that pain too. It's a great tactic to try if you're having foot or heel pain.
Yes, definitely. And then also ensuring that your shoe size is correct, because sometimes if we have too small of shoes, we naturally ball our feet up in our shoe, and then it can have pain in other areas and cause pain in your ankle in other areas when you don't have the correct shoe size. So a good rule of thumb with that is to have a thumb length width in the front of your shoe. From the longest toe that you have, use a thumb length of width in the front toe part of your shoe so that you will have enough room. Okay. Any questions with that? Nope. Okay. So we'll go into pre-run stretching. So sometimes you will hear people talk about dynamic stretching versus static stretching. So you want to ensure that you are warming your body up when you are doing your runs. So if you think about it, can everyone see me on the screen? Since I'm talking, can you all see me? Okay, so this is some putty. So a lot of times, imagine this being your muscle. If you go out and you do your run without warming up, this is what your muscles do. They can pull apart very quickly and more in a harsh way. Whereas if you warm your body up going and doing your warm-ups, your muscles will be more fluid and be able to be more mobile. So you want to ensure that you are warming up your body so that your body is more fluid and your muscles are mobile. This helps to have a better run and is huge with injury prevention. So for some people, they like to do your dynamic stretches, which are here are some examples here. And like Gina mentioned, you want to be careful if you already have back pain to be careful with some of these stretches. But this right here on the left, where I am grabbing my knee, that is a knee grab. And you'll be able to walk forward and grab each knee at an alternate time, or you can stand it in one position and grab your knee. But again, you want to be very careful with that. And then on the top picture, leg swing. So you bring your leg back and then swing it up front. Now you want to ensure that you keep your trunk upright and you're not moving back and forth when it comes to that. Right. So this here is another pre-run stretch, which is a dynamic stretch. It is called a hamstring swing. So you basically have your foot out in front of you and you are bending down as if you're scooping up the air. So you will go from the back part of your ankle and scoop up towards your head. You will feel a stretch in the back of your hamstring. This is really good in regards to making sure that you're stretching those areas out without doing too much stretching. When it comes to dynamic stretches, you want to ensure that you are doing these. They're not stretches that you will hold in one place, but they're more stretches to help with mobility.
All right, we're going to turn it over to Dana to talk a little bit about how important it is to focus on your form when you're running.
All right, awesome. One little thing that I'll add about the shoes is I know in a lot of areas it's winter, it's wet. Try not to put your shoes in the dryer after a run if they are wet. Let them air dry, and that also helps when you're rotating the shoes so that you have that one wet pair of shoes that can dry overnight. It comes back to its natural form, gets a full cushion back. You're using those other shoes. So by putting them in the dryer actually kind of ruins the cushion and ruins some of the form of the shoe. So talking about form, I love form. The one thing I will tell you about form is we all have our natural strides. We all have our natural form. So we're not looking to recreate the wheel. We're just looking to sharpen and give you some cues and some tips to help you run more efficiently. And by increasing the way you run with your form, you're actually using less energy, which is awesome. So we're going to do a head to heel, just some tips and some cues. So if you think about your head, the first thing you want to do is stack your head over your shoulders. So we want to stand up as tall as we can, kind of imagining that we're standing up against a wall. And one thing that I like to say is tying a string. Imagine one of your coaches ever so gently is tying a string to the top of your head and pulling you up to the sky. So that's really pulling you up, helping you to stand tall, stacking that head over your shoulders. With your eyes, one thing that is common is looking down. And that's because we don't want to trip and all those things. Then that makes sense. But by looking down, you're actually causing more strain on your neck, your back, your lower back, and it's just a chain reaction all the way down. So looking ahead about 15 to 20 feet is going to help you just to have that natural relaxation of your face and of your neck. So the head is high, we're pulling up on that string. Next, we're going to look at our shoulders. So our shoulders are down and back. So opening up those shoulders. And the cue for this is imagine I'm putting a tennis ball between your shoulder blades. So you're pulling back those shoulder blades, grabbing that tennis ball. And what that does is it opens up your chest, allowing you to get that oxygen in, allowing the back to relax, and allowing you to just really focus on those arms. So the shoulders are down, back, grabbing that tennis ball. The next thing is your arms. Your arms ideally will be at a 90 degree. So a nice 90 degree, like relaxed. You're relaxing your hands and you want to swing forward and backward. That gives you the most momentum. If you're crossing that midline, so if you're swinging, this is very natural, but if you're running like this, I can be guilty when I get fatigued as well. But if you're doing this, you're losing that natural momentum. So moving forward and backward actually drives your legs below you. And then with your hands, a very common thing is that tight fist. So I encourage you to relax those hands. And a cue is imagine you're holding a butterfly or a chip or a spoon with an egg on it, something nice and light so that you're not like tensing those hands. If you tense the hands, you tense all the way up the arms, all the way up into the shoulders, down into the back. So then we now move down to our hips. And our hips, ideally, you want to square them up so you're not leading with one or the other. You've got a nice shoulder to hip alignment. And with those hips, one cue is to remember that you should be leading with your hips. A lot of times we lead with our head or our shoulders or our chest. So to think, lead with the hips, that kind of pulls us back, stands us up tall again, and we're leading forward with those hips with our strides. Then when we move down to our legs, we just want a nice natural kind of straight line down. We want the knees over the feet as we're landing those feet. We want those legs, you know, that's where the running specialty stores can help you with the shoes that fit you properly, so that will help you with the support that you need with the way your legs and your feet are naturally. And then when you go down to your feet, I know a lot of people listen to music or have other distractions, but if you can hear your feet over that music, over that podcast, then you need to lighten the foot, because the more pounding you have of your feet, the more that's sending a ripple effect all the way up your body. And you're going to start to feel it in your feet, your legs, your hips, your back. So think about running on maybe eggs or glass, just a nice light. And I know it sounds hard and there's a lot of different cues. So what I encourage you to do is maybe you jotted down some notes or you can rewatch this, and then just pick one or two things maybe for a week. Just focus on, maybe I'm going to do the head. Maybe I want to focus on stacking my head over my shoulders. And then maybe the next week you'll focus on leading with your hips. And just these tiny little tweaks, you'll start to realize that you're more efficient and you're using less energy, which is beautiful in the world of running.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Okay, we're going to go through a few foam rolling examples as well, Dina. And we're butting up close on the hour limit, so we'll cruise a little bit, but we'll take questions if we need to by email.
Yes, perfectly. So foam rolling is one thing that I see a lot of you have, and it is so beneficial for us as runners. It is one thing that you don't have to do within a specific time frame. You know, a lot of times you hear eat a snack or a stretch or these things that stay tight to the workout. Foam rolling is something that you can do at any point in the day, and it will benefit you. I tend to run maybe in the morning, and I'll foam roll at night when I'm relaxed or watching TV or whatever it may be. So it is something that you can do at any point. You can do it before or you can do it after. This is one that I do like. It's a trigger point. And I also have one that's called the rumble roller. I've used this one for years. And it just kind of wasn't getting into all the nooks and crannies. So this one really, it's like a happy hurt. But with the foam roller, you'll see that on this first picture, it's more of the calf muscle. So it's a nice slow movement, and you can either point or flex the foot, just depending on how it feels, and just a nice slow back and forth movement. Now, be cautious not to go on the back of your knee. You don't want to hit the back of your knee. You don't want to hit the bones. You don't want to hit the IT area. It'd be great. We could, certainly do like a foam rolling how-to and tips and classes, just to make sure that we're safe and careful with that. The other one you'll see is more of that glute area. And that's certainly one area that it feels good. It may be a little bit tingly as you're doing it, but it definitely feels good. And it increases that blood flow, that mobility. And then the other one is a quad stretch. All right, and some post-run stretching. India had talked about before dynamic stretching. And when you think of dynamic, just think of movement. So we like to move before we move. That's how I like to think about the dynamic. We want to move that body. We want to warm up the muscles. Then we're moving in our activity. And then when we're done, we're doing what's called static stretching. So that's a little bit more of kind of that cool down, that calming down the muscles, that just slowly stretching them, strengthening them, and letting them get that blood flow, getting that mobility back into our body. So the first one, is just like a nice calf, lower back. You'll see a quad stretch. And if you want to go to the next one, Gina.
Sure, sorry.
That's okay. And then another one is also like a calf stretch. You can just do a lean forward, or if you take your foot up against maybe like a step or a curb, and you can change the height of your foot and push forward, you'll feel that up in your calf. And then rolling the ankles, another good one. Just again, to get that blood flowing, let the muscles kind of calm down after the exercise. A butterfly stretch is also a great one for the groin, for the hips, for the lower back. And then that cross stretch is also a nice one for the back, the hips, the glutes. And with these, I would pick maybe 2 or 3. Pick 2 or 3 that you like, get comfortable with that. Maybe add another one, maybe one you don't like, maybe one you do a little bit more, and just sprinkle them in until it becomes a habit.
Okay, awesome. I'm going to go quickly. We have a couple more minutes. So yeah, the stretching, I just wanted to add with the foam rolling too. If you do have back pain, just be really careful. Dana demonstrated the foam rolling with really great form, but sometimes we tend to twist our body and tweak our back a little bit. So just be careful. If you do have a back injury and you have questions specifically to foam rolling, please let me know. And then this is just an exercise that you can do at the end. It's not really an exercise, that you can actually do it more of a meditation, where you just draw your knees up to your chest on your back, breathe deeply, and that position actually unloads the discs in your low back. And there's actually research that shows that just a couple minutes of this can rehydrate the discs. So I suggest that at the end of your run too. Also, if you're running at the end of your day by chance and you've been up all day long, doing this before your run will unload those discs for a little bit before you go out and pound the pavement and put that impact through your back again. So that's just another little tip. Okay. So in summary, obviously understanding injury prevention is really important to making sure that we can continue meeting our goals and getting out there and doing our runs. I want to address a couple of the questions super fast. How is doing the bicycle exercise different than the dead bug exercise, more or less beneficial? Either of them are great as long as you're contracting the transverse abdominals while you're doing them and you're not having any pain in your low back. So if you have pain in your low back or neck or any kind of issues, then I would suggest the dead bug because it's just very protected. Does pointing your toes upward while doing the bridge make it more or less effective? I think we're talking about the hamstring exercise, actually, the bridge on the hamstring and then the curls. I say just relax your feet when you're doing those curls because the focus should really be on contraction of the hamstrings. And then will the recording be available? I believe that JL is going to mail out the recording so you all can watch it again, should you like to do that. Okay, and I think we got through it. Whoo, JL. All right, let me stop sharing. And
one more question just popped in.
Okay, sorry, I can't see the chat. Here we
What's
go. Now
better,
I see the
treadmill or pavement?
Ooh.
That's always tricky. Go ahead, Gina.
I think it depends on the treadmill too. I think if you're at a high quality gym with a really nice treadmill, then sometimes it's actually better. But for me, I used to have a treadmill that was a piece of junk, and so if it's a treadmill that doesn't have as good a shock absorption, that can be worse. Would you guys agree, India and Dana?
Yeah, I would also add that I think that Well, Peloton, so she just said Peloton, so it sounds like that should be a really good one. But I would say I would add, when it comes to either treadmill or pavement, having the right shoes, focusing on your form, making sure that you're having like the right bra and everything to help also with posture. Like all of those things matter. So if you don't have the right shoes and all of that, the what you're running on, either one, you're going to have some impact to your body. So you want to definitely look at all the things that we listed today, because and it just depends. But also, of course, if you're running on softer pavement, or not even pavement, but like a track type material, those are a little bit softer than actually running on the sidewalk on the concrete.
I'll add to that too, just real fast. Uneven surfaces, sorry, Dana, I'll let you go too. Uneven surfaces can be really hard on us too, especially if we have back pain. So an uneven surface, like running through a grassy, area or whatever, or a trail, that can be harder on your body if you have particular issues. It's knee pain even, because you step just a little bit funny and it tweaks that part of the knee where you have the arthritis. So just keep that in mind. An even surface, a track is ideal, but an even surface for people who are having pain is a good option. Go ahead, Dana.
And for the treadmill, just a couple tips on that. When you're on the treadmill, you pop that incline up to a 1 to 2%. That gives you some resistance or some similarity to running outdoors versus having it on that 0. So it does reduce a little bit of that stress on your body. And then a very, very natural, normal thing that we do when we're on the treadmill is we kind of want to like hug the front with like our dear lives. And that actually puts more strain on our ankles and our calves and all the front of the legs. So ease back into the middle of the belt. Most of them are a very long deck. So find the middle of the belt and just run comfortably as naturally as you can indoors, like you would outdoors. And then an outdoor tip is, we're running facing traffic. So that's how we're running outdoors, but roads and sidewalks have just a little bit of a slant to them. So if you run the same route every single time, you're going to start to feel that right leg's feeling a little bit tingly, that left leg, you just have a little bit of that incline or that decline with the road. So switching up the trail to a path, to a track, will help the legs overall to balance to the running.
Awesome. All right. I think we can wrap it up with that. And any other questions that you think of later, please feel free to send them out to us. But it has been our pleasure to see your shining faces. It's so awesome. It's fantastic. So thank you, JL.
Thank you. This was, I've been running for forever, and I felt like I was like, okay, yeah, this is some really good information. So I hope you guys were able to take away some good notes, refine probably some things that you've been doing for a long time, gotten comfortable with, that you probably need to switch up, throw probably a pair of shoes out that you've been holding on to that you need to throw out. And I definitely appreciate Dana, India, Gina, of course. Please go ahead and save the date for February 17th. That's going to be our second masterclass at 7:30. We'll be talking about what everyone loves is food. As much as we talk about, physical activity in the kitchen is probably just as or even more important about how we fuel our bodies. So I hope you guys are enjoying the training. I only heard from a couple of you guys that had not gotten your shirts yet. Joyce, did you get yours today?
No, it hasn't come yet. It may come tomorrow.
Okay, I'll check the tracking when I get off. That good old postal service these days is very interesting, to say the least. But hopefully everyone else got their shirts. You've also gotten the gift packs from Brooks, and expect an email tomorrow about your scavenger prize. So thank you again. Have a great evening. And we appreciate the time that you've invested in this program as well. And again, thank you to Dana, India, and Gina. We look forward to seeing you guys soon.
Yay. Thank you, ladies.
Bye, you guys.
Bye.
Thank you. Good night, ladies.
Bye. Awesome. Thank you, ladies.